Good evening, everybody. How are we this evening? Hope that everybody is doing good. We are live on the Dental Show. Hello, everybody. Good evening. I hope that everybody is doing well. Welcome to the Dental Show. And obviously, it's Thursday night. It's date night with Dental. And tonight is a great night because we're talking about mortgages. We're talking about all of you out there in the diaspora who really are looking to purchase home in Ghana. And it's exciting that, we've got three important panelists from three major banks that are going to be advising you, giving all the tips on how to get a property in Ghana. I know it's very exciting. I want you to share your pages. So if you're watching me on Facebook, make sure that you share your page. You follow that page as well. If you are watching me on Instagram, on YouTube, you can also subscribe to my YouTube and also click the follow button. Make sure that you click that follow button so that, all of these shows that we are doing, right, you get a notification. And so I'm so happy to have, First National Bank with us. We have, Fidelity Bank and we have Stanbic Bank. So three major banks, and that's really incredible. But before we go and speak to them, I don't know whether you know, but last week we had Mary Spio, who's a Ghanaian entrepreneur, and she makes these amazing headphones. I'll just show you now. Okay, fantastic headphones made by Ghanaians. She lives in the US and she's doing amazing things. And guess what? I've got mine. The sound quality, the vibration is incredible. And so, I urge all of you, right, to go online. This is her website and just get one. Guys, you need to get one. And guess what? If you go online and you enter Denta VIP, so my name Denta VIP, you get 10% off. Yes, you get 10% on the sound quality. Like you can feel the music, like when you're listening to music. And even now that I'm speaking to you guys, I can just hear everything is just so perfectly clear. So make sure that you go on seekvr.com. She's a Ghanaian entrepreneur, Mary Spio, doing amazing things. And because you are our viewers, you get to have 10% off. All you need to do is type in Denta VIP. Yes, you're a very important person. So make sure that you do that. I'm going to take this off. And then Vesta London Beauty. Vesta London Beauty is doing this amazing lip glosses. Make sure that you go online as well and purchase one of her Baby Girl. That's what I'm using right now. It's called Baby Girl. Make sure that you go and grab one of those as well. And then I can't forget my all-purpose seasoning and shito by another Ghanaian entrepreneur by the name of Cassie's Classics. That's her website. She makes this delicious shito. It tastes like stew, like you guys need to go out there and purchase one ASAP. And I must say a big thank you to World Remit, who are our sponsors for the show. Thank you so much for being part of this. World Remit is a better way to send money. Absolutely. I'm going to be giving you out the promo code as well, where you can get £20 to send to a loved one. Yes, £20. So make sure that you subscribe to World Remit. Absolutely important that you do. And I'm very excited about tonight's show. I've got three excellent people that I'm going to be speaking to tonight about the real estate industry. And I think that, it's an important time for us to have this discussion. And I think, we've got these major banks that are going to be on tonight. So get ready. I know you guys are ready. Okay, my people. Okay, you guys already started saying where you're watching from, and I haven't even asked you yet. So we have Belgium. Where are you? London, Anthony. Where else? Romeo, where are you watching me from? Where's everybody watching me from? I want to know. Winnifield. Winnie. Hi, Winnie. Gosh. Tell me your location. Tell me your location. I want to know your location. Chicago. Sarah, welcome. Welcome. And Gertrude, I got my shit. Oh, you got the shit. Oh, fantastic. Well done. We've got Augustine from Lower. Wow. Fantastic. Netherlands. Guys, I'm watching from Birmingham. Pat. Hi, Pat. Hertfordshire, Italy, the USA, Luton. Oh my goodness, guys, fantastic. Please keep it coming, keep it coming. All of you that are watching on Facebook, please share your pages, do a watch party with a loved one, because this interview or conversation is going to be very, very beneficial. And you don't know who might be needing that information as well. Hi, Elizabeth. I know Elizabeth has been very, very eager. She's like, Denta, I can't wait for this conversation because it's really needed. I've got New York. Wow. Dorset. Wow, my people are here. Oh, First National Bank is also watching. Hi. Wow, we've got them on Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. And so, guys, please share your pages. Please share your pages so that we can get the conversation going. And like I said, my name is Denta Amwating, and I am the presenter or host for tonight's show. It is going to be epic. Amanda's saying, yes, it is definitely going to be epic. You know, I know a lot of you, especially the young people now, are looking to invest back home. And what does that mean? And I think it's really important that we often get, we need the expertise to advise us so that we make the right decisions. And as you know, we had one on real estate. And today we're focusing mainly on mortgages, and then we're going to have, the Lands Commission people come on as well next week to talk about the land, purchasing land, all the things that, you go through. I have Jocelyn from London as well. Harry's watching from MK. Wow. I think now is the time. I've had about 3 or 4 minutes with you guys just to kind of say, I hope everybody's also keeping safe. Remember, it's still COVID-19, even though a lot of borders are starting to gradually open and shops are opening. Please remember to wear that mask. Okay, wear that mask and wash those hands and make sure that you are social distancing. I think that these are very, very important. The death rate is still ongoing. And so we need to make sure that we are keeping safe from COVID-19. Albert is watching us from London, Felicia from the USA, Emmanuel from Luton. And I think I'm going to invite our first guest, who I've known for a couple of years. I remember when he was at Ghana Home Loans, as it was. And we used to talk. I used to always try and get Kojo to sponsor some of the Goober events, and he'll be like, oh, Denta, this and that. I'm like, Kojo, please support the Goober Awards. And he did. And so it's an honor to have him on tonight. He's now the executive head for home loans at the First National Bank. Please welcome Kojo Adokofor. Hi, Kojo.
Hi, Denta. Real pleasure.
Good to have you on. Thank you so much for honoring my invitation. I think that, tonight's conversation is a very important one, especially for us in the diaspora who are looking to, get that first home or get that second home. What are the ways to go about it? But first of all, I want you to kind of introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, what you're doing currently, and what you were doing before, so that my audience get a view of who you are.
Right. I think you've done most of the introduction. I think I should first start by saying a big hello to your audience from literally around the world. In terms of who I am, I mean, most of your audience would probably remember me from Ghana Home Loans and then GHL Bank. And then now we're part of First National. So it's been a long journey. But the message is still the same. It's still home ownership. It's still getting Ghanaians in the diaspora to acquire homes back home. And I'm very happy to be here. Always happy to engage in such conversations because a lot of people have made mistakes in the past, and there's no need for the current generation to make mistakes of yesteryear. And I'm sure we'll discuss some of these issues in the next few minutes or so.
Absolutely. And you know, how has your time been so far in terms of what have you seen the impact in terms of the diaspora purchasing homes in Ghana?
Well, I think it's definitely, the experience is definitely a lot easier from my days. I mean, I did my time in London and elsewhere, and back then it was hard to get any information on properties back in Ghana. But thanks to the internet, thanks to social media, thanks to the generation that went before that made all the mistakes. Now, if you're really looking to buy a home, there are lots of people you can consult. There are several social media pages, websites, institutions, lots of places to go for advice, and that's made it a lot easier for those outside looking to buy to do so. Unfortunately, there are still some who make mistakes, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's definitely a more pleasant experience now than it was a few years ago.
Yeah, but you know, Kojo, but how did your journey start? You know, how did your journey start for you in terms of, you know, coming into this space?
Wow. So after moving around a fair bit, I ended up back in London. Then I got shipped to Lagos with Citigroup. And in Citigroup, I met Dominic, who was in Nigeria at the time, and also got introduced to Ellis, who was in Ghana at the time. So the three of us got together and decided to do something about home ownership, because we each had a home ownership story to tell. You know, the lands that you bought, you never got documents for, the inquiries you made that never got responded to. So there was a natural passion there to get it going. And that all came to a head in 2006 when Ghana Home Loans was launched. And kind of we never looked back from there. But I mean, as I said earlier, I mean, I also bought, you know, sitting in London, I tried to buy land, came later to find the documents were pointing in a different direction. You know, so all kinds of things which made us very eager to make sure that other people didn't have that same headache.
Issues, yeah. But then, you know, could you, I mean, you said that you were in London for a bit, but what made you go back to Africa when you were, I'm sure you were comfortable in the UK, you know, what was the urge? What was the urgency?
I think for me, the journey always pointed back home. I mean, even from day one, I knew at some point I'd have to go, but the question was when. So I was in London for a bit, then went to the US, did some time in Australia, Far East, back to London. And at some point, I looked at the generation ahead of me and realized that when you go past a certain age, there are some very tough decisions that you have to make, whether you want to stay in London or move back. And I think sometimes if you don't make that decision in the right way and at the right time, you make plans for one journey but end up doing another. But for me, as I said, it was very clear. I really wanted to come back home, and I was always looking for an opportunity. So when Citigroup opened up in Nigeria, I mean, I jumped at it because that was right next door. And the whole idea was used as a staging post for possible return. But I mean, as I said, there's no right answer. I mean, I wouldn't say coming back home works for everyone. And I'm sure for every success story you can tell, there's always somebody who came and obviously probably didn't have the experience they were looking for. But if you kind of plan about it and pray about it and have the right support system and keep at it, I think that's the most important part. When you come, you have to rip up the return ticket and rip up the passport, because there's always a reason to want to go back. But once you throw things away, then you really dig in and make sure it works. But yeah, you do go through some initial frustrations. But eventually things work out.
Yeah, and how important is partnerships? Because, you know, you said that, you know, the you, Ellis, Dominic, and yourself decided to come together. Because I think now is the time for us to be doing more partnerships than doing individual stuff. And I'm glad that, you know, you've mentioned that. How important is it that, you know, people in the diaspora some of them can just come together and do things together? How important is that?
Well, it's very critical. I mean, it makes the burden, the lifting a lot easier if you've got good partners. And I underline the word good, because sometimes partnerships can also be a nightmare. But when it works beautifully, and it really makes it gives you the staying power, because there's somebody always running alongside you. You can bounce ideas off, and you encourage each other and find solutions. Once you sit around the table, you figure out there's no problem you can't surmount. If it's just you, it can be a very lonely journey and you might give up. So yes, finding the right people you're on the same frequency with. But I can assure you it's not easy at all. But once, if you do find the right partners, and mine have been brilliant. I mean, absolutely brilliant. But if you find the right partners, it makes a world of a difference.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think now is the time I'm going to introduce my director from Fidelity Bank, Godfred. Thank you so much for, joining us. I mean, I've worked a lot with the CEO and the MD, Julian and Mr. Effa. And so, it was an honor to have you join us this evening. So guys, please welcome Godfred. Hi, Godfred.
Hi, Denta.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight's show.
Thank you.
I want to start a little bit. I want my audience to kind of get to know who you are, your journey. I know that your journey, you've been through, you've had a lot of experience in other banks. But, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you've gotten to where you are today.
Okay. Good evening to your teaming viewers across the world. I think you're doing a great job. I've been watching some of your series, especially the last one on how young people in diaspora could take opportunities here and acquire a home, so they come back home, they can have a place to lay their head. I started, let me say, my job as it relates to this very industry way back in Standard Chartered. Happened then to be a product manager responsible for home loans and auto loans. So it was just one unit that does home loans and mortgage loans. And we did a lot of things with the grader then. Come fast forward, I moved to Stanbic Bank. And at that side, we worked to set up the mortgage team in Stanbic Bank. And I remember very well those days we did quite some nice things. We did some shows across London, Europe, and the US, etc. I'm sure some of your viewers may have come across us either in Manchester, London, etc. So we've done some stuff there. Joined Fidelity Bank about 4 years ago, and been responsible for personal banking to date.
Okay, and I'm glad that you've come to London to do some of the tours. And how was the interest like when you came to do the tour in the UK and Manchester?
Okay, so largely what I realized is that a lot of folks back, in the diaspora always want to have a place decent, secured, located in a community where if they come, issues about security, etc., will not be a problem. You realize speaking to them normally, you realize security is prime to a lot of the people. So they normally want to be in areas where they don't have problems with utilities, etc. So you realize that a lot of them were interested in some of the up and coming developments. I don't know if I'm permitted to mention some of the development. People wanted places where utilities and the environment is well serviced, gated communities, and yes, they want a place to lay their heads that they wouldn't have problems. If you listen to a lot of them, they've gone through stories where they've sent money back home to their folks, siblings, to put up a house for them. And unfortunately, by the time they come, property is nowhere to be found. Plots somewhere in the middle of nowhere. You have to wade through mud, bush, and get to a place surrounded by squatters. A lot of them had problems. A lot of them just wanted to buy a completed house where if they come, they know that this is my house, this is where, and they do acknowledge that it will be slightly expensive, than if they were to build it themselves. But at the end of the day, that I got it done. I got it within less a space of 12 months. I have my own home. I have my own keys. So it gave a lot of them peace of mind. And I think a lot of them prefer that approach, compared to the construction nightmares that many of our folks in the diaspora had suffered.
So Godfrey, do you think the number of people seeking to get mortgages in Ghana has increased over the years?
It's yes and no. I would say yes, because if you look, for example, the challenges people will have to go through in acquiring their own land and beginning to build something for themselves, and the challenges they normally have with land guards, chiefs who will double sell your land, etc. People have people have grown to like the option of buying a property developed by real estate developers in a more secured enclaves. And for that matter, it normally comes with you having to take a mortgage if you don't have the full funds that you can mobilize at a go. Because typically, people will take personal loans over a period of, let's say, 5 years, 6 years. I always use the examples of our fathers who spent time putting up the houses for their retirement, and a lot of them retire, or they complete it, let's say 2-3 years to retirement, and they move in. But you realize that the generation of today have realized that it doesn't pay for you to go through all that time in putting up your house that you want to stay. It's better off converting your rentals that you pay to someone else into, let's say, a mortgage repayment or servicing, such that you can live in your dream house today and for the rest of your career. So that at least by the time you get to retirement, you would have climbed the mortgage ladder. So typically, I advise people that, look, I know a combination of factors will make it difficult to acquire your dream home right from the beginning, but take the path where you start from the bottom of the housing ladder or the mortgage ladder. You take a 1-bedroom and a hall, or maximum 2-bedroom and a hall, not too luxurious, and then you gradually climb up the ladder. So initially you will take a mortgage, but it will not be too big. So at least it makes it possible for you to get somewhere to lay your head and not pay rentals to landlords every 3 years cycle, etc. So along that line, a lot of people have come to realize that it pays to take a mortgage and get your dream house now, rather than wait to build it over so many years.
Okay. Kojo, do you think it's the same? Has the number of people seeking mortgages in Ghana increased or decreased? And if so, why?
I think we've seen a definite steady increase. There was a time when most people didn't believe it was possible to take a mortgage to buy property. They thought it was too expensive. They thought it was too complicated. And they always thought there was an easier way to do it. But we have evidence to back up the fact that over the past 15 or so years, more and more people have seen their friends or family take a mortgage facility, buy a place, take another mortgage facility, buy a second place. And through that observation or experience by observation, they've come to understand that the product actually works, and they've come along themselves. So normally you find people initially being a bit skeptical about it, but they do come around after they've seen colleagues at the office or friends or family members sign up and successfully pay off. That's the other thing. there's a notion that if you take a mortgage, you'll never finish paying, which is obviously not true. So once you've seen someone go through the whole cycle, you must be convinced that it's the way to go. I should also add that for those in the diaspora, normally the concern is around the interest rates, and we get that a lot of the time, where somebody's in the US or in the UK and they're comparing the rates there to the rates in Ghana. I would argue it's not a fair comparison. One, the rates in the UK used to be double digits too. It's only recently they've dropped to where they are. And secondly, it's a totally different economy. But I think if you're in the diaspora and you're looking to buy a property and you're kind of listening to this show and you're not sure whether to take a mortgage or not, if you've got the means to fund the property purchase without borrowing, please go ahead and do so. But if it's something you're thinking about and you don't remember anything from this show, you've got to remember this one. It's not just about the money, it's about the due diligence that the institution provides on your behalf. So in taking a mortgage, you have a partner in the purchase. The same way that you are looking to make sure that the documents are all there and the vendor is the right vendor and the properties in the right location and it's where the documents or the site plan says it is. The financial institution is also doing the same. So it gives you another pair of eyes to check over the document. And I think that's invaluable. And those who understand that use it to great benefit. So that's something I think that shouldn't be lost on the viewers in the diaspora. I think of it as not just a financial assistance, but a partner in due diligence.
Okay. And Kojo, is it difficult to get a loan in Ghana?
If you're in the diaspora, or
generally.
I don't think it's difficult to get a loan. It's probably difficult to get a decently priced loan. I mean, if you want a loan, you get a loan at 6% a month or 10% a month. There's always someone looking to lend you money. But to answer your question directly, I mean, yes, you do have to provide documentation or provide details, which not everybody either has or wants to provide. It always comes around source of income or verifiable income. And Ghana, most people have their salary and then they have whatever else they do. And trying to put all of that together.
The side jobs.
And if you're self-employed, even figuring out exactly how much you earn and being able to convince the financial institution, this is my regular income. That's where some people have a difficulty with. But I think it's time well spent, going through that exercise to demonstrate to a financial institution that this is what I do. I import this or I sell that. And when you add it all together, this is how much I'll earn. So it's a bit of a painful process. And if the individual feels there's an easier way to do it, they tend to go for that easier alternative. But if you're prepared to go through that process, I think it's time well spent and invested in getting that relationship with the bank. Similarly, in the diaspora, you find people applying for loans here, expecting the process to be different from what it is there. It isn't. It's the same. We ask exactly the same questions your bank will ask there. If there's something irregular on the credit report, we want to know why. But when you add it all together, a lot of people have qualified. I mean, so that should give anybody listening to this program who's kind of worried about that, the confidence and that assurance that if you apply, you will get it. If you don't get the facilities, maybe because actually you're not earning enough to qualify for the amount you're seeking to borrow, and the bank is on your side here. Most banks don't want to give you more than you can comfortably service because that's just prudent lending. So if the bank says no, it's maybe for a good reason. But otherwise, if you demonstrate the right level of income and there's nothing wrong with the property, you qualify. At least I know we will give it to you.
Okay. I mean, I've got somebody on the, a comment on the screen says, what deters most people is the rate of most of the mortgages are based on foreign currencies. Is that correct?
Yes. It's if you want local currency mortgages or cedi denominated mortgage, you can borrow in cedis. If you want the US dollar one, you can borrow in dollars. So it's a menu. You pick the one you want. I mean, people tend to focus more on the dollar, but there is a cedi facility as well. There's a cedi option. So nothing stops you from taking that. But if you do, you realize that it comes with a cedi interest rate. But otherwise, nothing stops you from taking the cedi facility.
Okay. I'll go to Godfred. Godfred, we're talking about, getting a loan. So what are the standard requirements for someone getting a loan in Ghana?
So typically, your income is very critical, considering that the investment that you're going to sign onto is a significant investment. It's not like taking a personal loan. So your income here is very critical. Aside the income, typically you must be in a very stable employment where you get consistent monthly income, be you a salaried worker or be you a self-employed. It's very critical that your income are consistent because the repayments that are expected of you, have to be consistent, to cater for the servicing of the facility. Aside that, it's also very critical that you should have at least cited a property that you intend to, acquire, right? And I normally ask people that it's very critical that you align your income sources to your expectation of the type of property that you want, right? Because you might want a 4 or 5 bedroom, a 2-storied or 3-storied luxury home, but your income cannot afford you. So it's very critical that you match your servicing capacity to what you intend to acquire. Aside that, it's also very critical that you must have a good credit history, because for every bank that seeks to give you a mortgage, you will typically go behind onto the credit referencing bureau and assess your credit history, because a mortgage loan is a significant lending commitment by the bank to you. And for that matter, we need to be sure that you have a good credit history and you will service this without defaulting. So your credit history is also very critical. Having met all these criteria, then I see no reason why you do not qualify to access a mortgage in any bank in Ghana. Just as Kojo said, you can decide to access it either in dollars or either in Ghana cedis, depending on your income, whether it's denominated in foreign currency or it's denominated in Ghana cedis. Typically, in Ghana now, because of the issues with Bank of Ghana, cross-currency lending is something that's being de-emphasized. So typically, if you earn cedi income, then we will grant you the mortgage in cedi. But if you also earn USD, then you would qualify to take a mortgage also in USD. So at least these are the basic criteria.
Are people getting paid in USD? Because the thing, I thought the Bank of Ghana have come and said, everybody must use the Ghana cedi. So why are we having two options?
No. So you do have guys and people who work in, let's say, NGOs or international development organizations. You have folks who work in the UN and other places outside Ghana and would want to acquire a mortgage. Even if you are in Ghana and you can evidence that you earn income in dollars, you would be allowed to take the facility in dollars. Either wise, you need to take it in Ghana cedis.
Okay. And what's the minimum income for somebody to be able to get a loan?
I will go back to what I said. It all depends on what you want to start with. I remember I had the opportunity to work in Southern Africa for a while. And I remember whilst I spent some time in Botswana and Lesotho and 1 or 2 South African places. And you realize that the folks there, once they come out of uni, typically they just want to get a 1-bedroom house. They call it bed sitter, right? So they have a 1-bedroom house, the kitchen and the living room. You don't really see any demarcation like you see back here. And it starts it that way. And they get some of these properties, which normally the developers give them an opportunity to expand the property as their income grows. So it's very easy for them to start with a single bedroom and a hall on a land that they can ultimately expand to, let's say, 3 or 4 bedroom or even a 2-story property. So it all depends on how you start. If you start small, then you don't need so much a salary to begin. I mean, in Ghana now, if you ask me for a cedi mortgage, give and take, your income should not be anywhere below, let me say 7,000 Ghana cedis. If you want like a 2-bedroom standard, which is not very waxed up, so maybe it's just normally louver frame, maybe ceramic tiles, normal standard aluminium roofing, stuff like that. Not, of course, not shingles or some of those high-end finishing. And I normally advise the young people coming up on the property ladder that it's good to start from the lower end
And work
get
your way up.
something that your pocket can afford by way of repayment, and make sure that the property you acquire can be expanded as your income grows. I mean, at any point anyway, you can decide to sell off and then move to a higher end property, maybe in a more developed enclave within your city. So it all depends on how you want to start.
Okay. Okay, guys, it all depends on how you want to start. But he would advise that you start small.
Yep.
And work your way up. And looking at the salary, because I got a message for somebody that you know, his salary was 2,500 Ghana cedi a month. So that means he's out of the equation. He won't be able to get any.
Not necessarily. So I know the government of Ghana over the last 2 years have introduced some affordable mortgage financing schemes where they are partnering selected developers who are building to fit the Ministry of Works and Housing's concept of affordable housing, you know, which is not very high end. So, and I know there are houses that are reasonably low, and I know a lot of public sector workers, you know, have signed onto that. And because the government is providing the funding, I know the banks that were on the initial pilot are able to give interest rate as low as I've even seen 12 and 15%. I mean, between 12 and 15%. Yeah, because government is subsidizing the funding, you know. So, I mean, if we're able to do more of these, then you realize that a lot of public sector workers would be able to sign on to this, because, I mean, a lot of public sector workers are on that level of the salary. I've also seen properties sold by SSNIT, some of the affordable housing projects started by President Kufuor, right, that they are finishing. If you go to Kumasi, I think Asokore Mampong, in Accra, just across the motorway, I think I've forgotten the place, just off the motorway, opposite the abattoir, or where the new Toyota office is. And they have quite a number of properties ranging from 1 bedroom all the way to 3 in apartments, up to, I think, 8, 9, 10 story, right? And I think they are very affordable, and it will fall within the pocket of people who are.
Do you know the price range? Do you know the price range so far?
I know it starts from about, I think, 55,000 cedis.
Ghana cedi, okay.
55 or 65, I stand to be corrected. And I think the highest, that's about 3 bedroom, is about 145. I know the one in Kumasi was pegged a little bit, so it's a little bit higher up. I think that starts from about 80 to almost about 250 or there around. You know, I've had some health workers and lecturers in tertiary institutions and polytechnics, technical universities who have approached for us to support them acquire through mortgage.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. I can see that there's a lot of questions coming in so far. And I don't know whether Kojo, can you see the question on my screen?
I can. It's just one. But can I just make a couple of points in support of that? The first is that there's always the option of joint borrowing. So, for example, the listener who commented that his income is around 2,500, 3,000. For example, if it's a husband and wife combination, and the wife too earns a similar amount, then they are closer to the 7,000 number Godfred mentioned. So that gives an option. The other one is land purchase. I mean, if you can't buy a house, at least start with a parcel of land. That's, you know, to follow on from Godfred's point about the property ladder, that's a rung lower than even a house. So you can start with a parcel of land and take a home construction mortgage. That also exists, and work your way up. I think as long as you are making progress, you're on the right track. I think the worst thing is not to do anything and continue to either rent or stay wherever you are. But once you put your mind to it, you can either buy a parcel of land, which the qualifying threshold is slightly lower, or as I said, do a joint purchase with a spouse or sibling.
Yeah, let me just quickly add
No,
that on the plot, or let me say plot finances, where a lot of banks and Fidelity, for example, we do have a vacant land financing. So you could always take the vacant land mortgage facility, or to buy a plot of land in a place which is decently serviced, and you can start to build the property on your own, right? And once you reach about lentil level, you can always come in and take a mortgage and then do the proper. And I normally advise the young people, you have age on your side, so you can take up to 20 years, that's 240 months, and it brings the repayment down. It's always better than paying rent, I will always say.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for adding that, Godfred. And guys, don't forget that this event is sponsored by World Remit, a better way to send money. Make sure that you send your money through World Remit. And I must say also, whilst you are watching, guys, please share your pages. I can see that everybody who hasn't shared their Facebook, so make sure that you share your page, because this is valuable information that you can pass on to another person who may be looking to purchase a property in Ghana. And I want the next question is, would you encourage people to buy or to build? I'll start with Kojo.
I think the answer is it depends. I mean, in these things, there are hardly ever right and wrong ways. It depends on your circumstances. It depends on how much time you have on your hands. It depends on your skill set. If you know you don't have time, if you know you don't have the skill set to supervise construction of a building, if you're somewhere in the US or UK, you can't be coming down every 3 months to supervise construction, your best bet is to buy, because then at least you've got a finished article. The beauty of building is obviously you build to your own taste and design and et cetera, et cetera. It's not easy, and sometimes you can get it horribly wrong. So it comes with certain risk. I kind of lean more towards buying for the first house. And if you want to build the second one, then you probably want to go ahead and do that. But it's usually, if you really haven't done it before, you're much safer buying, because you leave the builders and the specialists in the field to do what they do best and minimize your risk. And then subsequently, when you have a bit more time and you want to build your dream home, you can go ahead and do so.
Godfred?
I would also say it depends on you. Like I told you, we, for example, have the vacant land financing, so you can buy the land, take your time, build at your pace, get to a level where you might need support, and you can come in for the mortgage, and then you can complete. The advantage that gives you is that because you're doing it at your own cost and steam, you are able to make it, you are most likely to be able to build something that you dream of or that you aspire to have. On the other hand, like I said earlier, you can take the approach of starting from where your income can accommodate, but make sure you get a property that you can always expand to suit your taste and your aspirations by way of the size and how you've projected your family size to be, etc. So it all depends on you. Whichever way you decide to take, just make sure that the repayment capacity can be accommodated by you in over the due period that you are servicing the facility that you've acquired to get your dream home.
Okay. We've got Amanda, and her question is, for the people who live in the diaspora, are the credit... Chrissy, can you put the question back up, please? I think she was... For the people who live in the diaspora, are the credit checks done on their foreign document status? How is the checks done?
So typically, what I know most banks do is that we'll typically, first of all, every documentation that you bring we make sure that you give it to a reputable solicitor or notary public who would authenticate their genuineness, if I can say so, and just to be sure of. And there are also at times that you can grant access, so the bank can access your credit you can grant authorization so they can access your credit referencing history, just to be sure of your level of leverage, So that's what we do basically.
Kojo, do you have anything to add to that?
No, well, it's just as Godfrey said. I mean, and I think what Amanda is asking is, do we want to? It sounds as if she's wondering why we'd be interested in their credit status overseas. We need to know how much, as an individual, let's say you live in the US, for example, how much you have taken out on credit cards, how much you've taken in personal loans, what you owe. So basically, when you get paid every month, how much of that goes to servicing your existing loans, student loans, car loans, mortgage, wherever you live, because that impacts how much we can lend you. We also want to know how you behave towards your previous lenders. Have you paid on time? Have you kind of danced around and defaulted? So we need to know that, because it does give us a bit of your credit character. So that informs the decision. And by the way, we do the similar thing for resident Ghanaians as well, because they are credit reference bureaus here in Ghana. So it's considered best practice wherever you take the facility.
Okay. Keith says, can I do cash out refinance on a property owned free and clear in Ghana? If so, what are the requirements?
So cash out refi is basically, yes, it's possible. I mean, I suspect what he's referring to is the equity release mortgage, because he owns the property, there's no debt on it, and he wants to use it to raise a bit of kind of long-term funding. Yes, he can. It's a very powerful product. I mean, in terms of raising money to either buy another property or support an ongoing business or some other venture. So it is possible. The requirements are, one, he needs to convince us he's the owner. So we need to do background checks on the title documents. I just alluded to. And then we check out his income to make sure he can support the loan he's looking to take out. But to the extent that he can show verifiable income, to the extent that the property is duly registered in his name, and we convince ourselves there's no other interest in the property, we can go ahead and do that transaction.
Godfred, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the advantage you get with equity release is that normally, at least at Fidelity, we will give you up to 70% of the open market value of the property. And the purpose of the facility is not restricted, unlike, let's say, if you are doing a turnkey mortgage or you are doing, let's say, a construction mortgage. The advantage with equity release is that you get the funds cash credited to your account, and you can decide to use it for any purpose you so deem fit. And so typically people will take it to maybe complete another house, or they may take it to maybe further their education. People may even take it to undertake maybe a medical surgery of a loved one, etc. So you can use the money for everything, including even expanding your business. So that's the beauty of an equity release. You control what you want to use the money for. So it's allowed. Up to 70% of the open market value of the property can always be available to you.
Fantastic. How long do I have to save in a bank to be considered for a loan? That's a question from one of the viewers.
From Fidelity Bank, typically for us, we do 6 months. So you should have channeled your income sources to us for a minimum of 6 months.
Okay.
And you qualify to take. There could be exceptions. So we've done exceptions for people depending on your level, how strong your credit score or credit history is. We could maybe possibly give you 3 months, but that you must have a very strong credit rating to do. Other than that, it's 6 months standard.
And that goes for you as well, Kojo. Is that 6 months?
Not really. I mean, for us, we require that if you don't already have an account with us, you open an account with us as part of the process. But that can be the beginning of the relationship. So there's no initial period. I mean, we
So
start off with
get it straight away.
Yeah, we get straight down to business, and then we see how we carry on. Yeah. So there's no entry requirement.
Fantastic. What do you think are some of the common misconceptions Africans in the diaspora have about building or getting a mortgage in Ghana?
Sure.
Okay. So in interacting with the folks back there, during road shows, first of all, a lot of people believe that the interest rates in Ghana are very expensive, and compared to what they see in Europe and the Americas, they think they will never finish paying. But I normally tell them that it's a factor of the economy we operate in. I mean, if you look across the market, most of us are between 11 and 12.5%, right? It's not the same as borrowing at 5% or 5 point something in UK or the US, right? But I always tell people it's better than renting, right? I always use my own as an example. At the time that I took a decision to take a mortgage, I had guarded then the equivalent of, the old currency, almost 120 million to rent a property somewhere around Community 19. And on my way, I happened to come across somebody from DevTraco who met me around where I was going to, and I knew him way back from KNUST. So I told him what I was going to. He said, "No, Godfred, you can't do this. Just come and use this as a deposit and just take a mortgage. It makes sense instead of doing this, right?" It's always better to have your own house. And to me, let the mortgage repayment you do essentially equate rental that you are paying to yourself, right? So to me, that misconception, I think, must be dealt with. Always it's better to take a mortgage. It can never be worse than paying rental for somebody for the rest of your life.
Okay, Kojo, did you have anything to say that to add to that before I go to Stephen's question? Chrissy, can you just remove Stephen's question for now, and then I'll come back to it.
In terms of misconceptions, I think Godfred has touched on one, which is the interest rate. The other misconception is that every property in Ghana costs $500,000. That's not true. Whenever conversations are held outside the country, everybody points to the usual names come up. I don't want to kind of castigate, but normally the same names come up. They say, how come you live in Ghana and you're buying property for 500, 600,000? That's just not the case. I mean, there are properties here in Ghana that are going for 25, 30, 35,000. So I think a bit of research, a bit of investigation, a bit of due diligence always pays off. You find that the price spectrum is a lot wider than people seem to believe. I mean, whenever you point out that there are properties here for under 50,000, you always get a shocked expression that, really? I mean, where can I find these? Obviously, if you're buying a property for 50,000, it's not going to look like a castle, but it's still a property, and some of them are quite decent. And I think that's, such a house is better than no house. And I really encourage our brothers and sisters in the diaspora to really kind of accept that or embrace that way of thinking, that if you're outside and you can afford that startup property, it's a good place to be whilst you plan for the bigger and better house for the future. But it's not the case that everything in Ghana is going for the multiples of millions, just like it's not the case that every plot in Ghana is $1 million. Another comment you tend to hear from time to time. You also get the sense that there's a view that nobody keeps records in Ghana. In other words, you can take the loan and not pay and nothing happens. That's also not. Ghana is kind of moving along too. So it is a loan, and you do have to service the facility. So one, the interest rate is what it is. I saw an earlier comment that if you borrow at 15%, you end up paying multiples of what you borrowed. I mean, that's finance 101. Net present value. If somebody's giving you a certain amount and giving you 15, 20 years to pay, you will end up paying multiples of what you borrowed. And if you don't want to do that, then you can prepay. If you prepay on the mortgage, then all of that interest goes away. So interest rate is one. Prices, do due diligence. Not every house in Ghana costs $1 million. There are some decent prices, and Godfred has touched on some of the government ones. And once you do get the facility, make sure you pay, because there are credit reference bureaus here, and one day, delinquency might come back to bite you.
With you.
Chrissy, can I have that question from Stephen back on, please, if you can find that? Okay. How can you onboard self-employed people onto your mortgage products? Most of the time you ask for salary working people, but there are many self-employed people who can make payments, but the system doesn't favor them a lot. I have been personally concerned about the gap.
I if I can take this, so at least at Fidelity, I mean, if you are a self-employed client and you show consistent income flows or into your account, why not? At the end of the day, I mean, loan servicing is about income consistency, right? Or inflows consistency into your account. As long as over a period I assess your turnover in your accounts and it clearly shows that you've been consistent, and the repayment of the facility you are seeking vis-a-vis your turnover in your account, I compare, and it's so obvious that you are capable of servicing the facility, why not? You would be granted. The challenge we do have with most self-employed folks is that at times people end up experimenting with stuff. So today the business is booming, it's going well, turnover is very good. The next time they are ill-advised, they switch business, and all of a sudden turnover starts plummeting and they are unable to service the facility. And at that point, they run to you seeking restructuring, etc. Compared to somebody who is salaried, and as long as they are in the job, their salary continue to count. That's the challenge we have. But if you show consistency in income, why not? We would give you the facility.
Kojo, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's been a major headache for us as well. I mean, and the question is right. I mean, the majority of Ghanaians are self-employed. So if you have a product that doesn't address that segment of the market, you're leaving a lot of kind of money on the table. So we kind of grappled with that for a very long time. How do you verify or confirm how much a self-employed person earns? Sometimes, or more often than not, the financial statements don't quite tell the full story in terms of how much they make. And you look at the bank statement, and it's hard to decipher how much of that money is revenue and how much of it is money coming in, money going out. And so a couple of years ago, we came up with what we thought was kind of a very elegant solution for this. And it was a product called Save to Own. And the whole idea was that if you want to borrow an amount, the ultimate test is to be able to make monthly repayments equivalent to how much you would have made under that loan facility. So for example, if you want to borrow, say, 10,000, and under that facility, you'd have to make 100 cedis a month. We set you a target of making 100 cedis a month payment into an account over, say, 12 months. And you cannot miss a single payment. You cannot take out money you've put back in. So it's almost like evidence-based testing. If you can make those payments for that predefined period, it's our way of verifying your credit, amongst other credit criteria. But that was how we kind of got around it. And I'm happy to announce that several self-employed people have used that product to buy property. But yes, it is always a very difficult one, especially if the records aren't properly kept. That makes it even more complicated. Occasionally, you get people who are self-employed who run their business in a manner which makes it easy to verify their income. So, for example, maybe they're a key distributor for an FMCG company. So even looking at their receipts and payments, you get a nice track record. But you have some very liquid businesses. You can tell from the people who are running the business that they are making money. It's just that nothing on their statements or bank accounts or anything really gives you a sense of how much they are making. So the Save to Own product was our solution to that problem, and I'm happy to report that it kind of addresses that solution. It's that problem. So if your questioner is interested, we can talk about it later. But yeah, self-employed are definitely a huge market segment.
Okay, fantastic. Can you see the question on the screen, Kojo? Can you read it out?
Yes, it says, in lieu of my personal cash flows, can I use the rent from an income generating property I want to buy to secure a mortgage loan? So that it sounds as if the person is asking that he wants to buy a property and he wants to use the rent that property will generate to secure the mortgage.
Is that possible?
It is, but we don't encourage it, and the hurdles are quite high. You know, we want to be sure that you're not doing speculative property acquisition. In other words, it's very easy to say, I want to buy this property. I don't have money to pay for it, but I'll buy it, rent it out, and then use the rent to service the loan. But the question is, what if you can't get a tenant? Then it becomes your problem and then becomes our problem. So we don't really encourage that. We'd rather you have an independent source of income to service the loan, whether or not you have a tenant in there. So we will give you some credit for the potential rent we think you can make from the property. But it won't be enough to qualify you to buy, which means if you don't have other income, you won't be able to do so. Otherwise, you find people just buying property on a speculative basis, and they just throw the keys back at you when they can't find tenants.
Okay. Godfred, anything to add to that, or should I move to the next question?
No, I think I was just going. It's normally speculative, and there can be hurdles and storms ahead that can seriously throw you off course.
Okay. What percentage is needed for a deposit towards a mortgage?
The down payment?
Oh, okay. Typically, minimum 20%. So at least you should have contributed 20% of the open market value or the sale price of the property, right? In exceptional cases, you may get maybe 10% under specific schemes, normally for public sector workers.
Okay. Is that the same for you, Kojo?
So we have a product which allows you to make a zero down payment. In other words, we'll fund 100% of the mortgage. It comes with an insurance product which you have to buy, which covers the down payment you otherwise would have had to make. But the beauty of it is you don't have to make the full down payment. You just have to pay the premium on the insurance product, and you own the property. You know, it kind of swings and roundabouts because you're not making a down payment, which means you're borrowing more, which means you need to earn a certain amount to qualify for the higher amount you're borrowing. But to the extent that you qualify for the amount you're looking to borrow, and you just don't have the down payment, it works perfectly because you don't make any down payment. We give you 100% of the facility, you pay the premium on the insurance, and you become a homeowner. But generally, we encourage people to put a bit of 10, 15, 20% towards the purchase of the property. It's good practice, and it also limits how much you borrow so that you can comfortably service the loan.
Okay, fantastic. Godfred, can you read the question that's on the screen by Solomon?
Okay, so Solomon wants to know, what is the possibility of a joint mortgage with the borrowers apart, one in Ghana and the other in the diaspora? So joint mortgage application is possible. So you are co-borrowers, and essentially, as long as the two of you can evidence consistent income, it's possible, just as we do for couples in Ghana, where maybe one works maybe as a doctor, the other one works as a banker or a lecturer. And once your incomes are consistent, we assess you, each of you, independent of your capability to repay consistently. And it gives you the opportunity to take a bigger mortgage and buy the property you aspire or you look forward to get, because your affordability goes high. So it's allowed.
Okay. And is that the same for you, Kojo?
Yes, it's allowed. I mean, there's a bit of an additional test we apply to it. I mean, so what we are looking for is the credibility of the relationship. We want to make sure that you're not leveraging someone's payslip to buy a property. In other words, I'm in Ghana. I earn maybe 1,000 cedis a month. I've got a friend in the UK who earns £10,000. We submit a joint application, and he just kind of comes along just to use his payslip to qualify. But in actual fact, I'm the one who's going to service the loan, which means if I'm unable to do so, the loan is going straight into delinquency. especially if the person in the UK absolutely has no intention of servicing the loan, no intention of coming to Ghana, it becomes a credit issue. So normally we want to make sure that it's a genuine joint application and it's not just a workaround. And if we are convinced that there's a real relationship there, siblings, husband and wife, and there's a real reason for the person with a higher income, especially, to service the loan when things turn sour, then yes, we go ahead and do it. But if we think that it's just somebody lending their payslip, then we might not do it.
You might not do it. Okay. How important is it to invest in a financial advisor and lawyers, etc.?
Definitely, if you have access to a lawyer in Ghana, it's very advisable. I would qualify that you need to find a lawyer who understands the transaction you're about to undertake. Respectfully, not all lawyers deal in land. So they might be very good in litigation. They might be very good in family law. They don't do land. You need someone who can look at an indenture and point out everything that's wrong with it. And normally, if you ask around somebody who's bought a property before and they share their experience, they might point you to someone who understands land, because that's a whole area of expertise right there. And so if you do engage that lawyer, then you have another pair of eyes looking out for you and advising you on what to look out for in the transaction. Financial advisor, I'm not quite sure the capacity in which they'll be engaged, but if the purpose is to put together your application, especially if you're self-employed and you need someone to bring it all together, then definitely, that makes it easier. The more organized the paperwork is, the easier it is for us to give you an answer.
Okay. Godfred?
Normally what I believe is that if the bank has got a very strong mortgage unit with mortgage experts, which cuts across land title issues, legal issues, insurance issues, etc. Really, I think taking a lawyer to go through your documentation, etc., just because you want to take a mortgage, I think it will be over the top. But just as Kojo said, if maybe you are not that literate and just want to be sure that the documentation I'm putting my signature to are all proper, it will not put me into any trouble any day in future, then you could get a lawyer to look at the papers, etc. But other than that, most banks have legal departments that will ensure that the title documentations, etc., are done perfectly for you, and you should be fine. You should be fine.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody says, Prince says, how can I open a bank account with Fidelity or any other bank whilst not in Ghana? I think that was.
So for Fidelity, just go to, I think you just showed our website.
Yes.
Just go to our website as Dental has displayed. You would see an open account banner, an icon. Just click and you'll be able to open your account within 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how fast your fingers are. But the most important thing is that you must have your identity, your identity card, and all the relevant information that has been listed on the website. So you can go there, do your recce, scan the requirements, prepare the documents, sit behind your laptop or tablet, and you can open your account max within 15 minutes.
Oh, fantastic. Whoa, this is good to hear.
You'll get your account. If you want us to courier your card to you, if you are in Ghana, we have your Ghana Post GPS location. We can courier your card to you. If you are abroad, we'll go through necessary protocols and let you have your card. If you want to use our app, it's very simple. Our contact center would always help you if you have a challenge. And it's very easy to self-onboard onto our mobile apps.
Yeah, and your online banking is also very good as well.
Very simple to self-onboard.
Very absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. Kojo, does that work the same way for First National Bank? Can I go online as somebody from the diaspora and and open an account?
Yes, absolutely. And I guess if you also need assistance in that regard, there are links there that take you to a contact center that helps you, because you might want to establish first the kind of account you want to
need.
As, savings or current. Yes. Otherwise, you can just go and go through that process online. Yeah.
Okay. But typically, what documents do you need? Is it okay to have a British passport as a Ghanaian that lives in the diaspora? Do you take that? Do you take those kind of things? Is it you have to have proof of address? What are some of the documents that you need to apply for a bank account online?
No, you can submit your British passport. You can,
okay.
We normally ask you to produce a document that typically have your residential status easily. And like I said, if you're in diaspora, normally all those documentation should be notarized, right, by a certified attorney who will notarize it for you. So you can use your foreign IDs as much as possible, right, to open the account. It's not a problem at all.
Okay, fantastic. And I see that we have a question from George, a question from David, and George also messaged me. George Kwame says, how do we create affordable homes for the average Ghanaian? And I think the question that is on the screen at the moment, Chrissy, if you can bring it back, is saying that, the average Ghanaian is earning between, 1,000, 1,005. How can they get on the property ladder? How can they get a mortgage? This is what the youth are earning.
It will be difficult. Let me be very honest. It will be difficult to earn 1,500. That's why I gave you the basic minimum. If you have to get, the low end, lower end of the ladder properties.
Yeah.
1,005. I will advise you to get your own land. Start building it at your own pace. At some point, when your income is has appreciated over time, then you can take advantage and take a mortgage and complete. Don't forget, most banks have home completion mortgage. So once you have title over the land on which you started the development, right, and it's not encumbered in any way at the Lands Commission, if a search is done on it, at any point in time, you can, if your income permits, to now take a mortgage to complete the property. I'll advise the questioner or the viewer takes that approach.
Okay, fantastic. I think we're going to take question time now, Chrissy. So if we can get the questions ready, that would be great, because I know that there's at least about 200 questions. So if we can go through them, that would be fantastic. And whilst we wait for the question, a lot of people are scared to go in for loans because of the interest rates. What are some of the advice, or what would you say about our interest rates in Ghana?
Well, so there's no easy answer to that. The question is, what options do you have? As I said, if you have an easier way of funding it, some people have access to friends and family who can pull resources and help them. But the reality is that the rates are what they are. And once you have a plan, I think that's the most important thing. And that goes for the earlier question you asked as well. If you earn 1,500, 2,000 cedis, what do you do? You have to figure out a plan. The difficulty is the competing uses for your funds. Invariably, you want to probably buy a car, you want to get married. Other things come along, which are also trying to take away from this home ownership dream, right? But so once you have a plan, then you're on your way. Now, the interest rates are a constant in that plan. I'm not saying borrow at any rate that money is given to you, but we've spoken about it a fair bit this evening. If you're taking a cedi facility, you know what the rates are. If you're taking a dollar facility, you know what the rates are. So that's a constant, and in every plan there's a constant. So once you understand that this is what it is, the question is, how do you work around this? How do you get the best possible payment terms to buy that parcel of land Godfred alluded to, and then start from there? But if that's your one and only issue, then you might probably not start, because the rates have been like this for a very long time, and it's unlikely that's going to change. That's a constant. So the question is, how do you work around it? How do you get payments, and how do you stretch your payment period? How do you negotiate with, say, the landowner, do a barter or something to just get that parcel of land and then gradually work your way from there?
Okay. Godfred, you have a question on the screen.
Yeah. See, I think the issue of you taking a decision as to whether you want to use our in-house legal department to assist you navigate the title change in any way. Typically, every bank that provides you a mortgage would handle the title transfer themselves. They will not leave it to you. Search for clean title, a lands commission would be done by the bank's legal department. It will not be done by your lawyer, but if you want your lawyer to go through the documentation, let's say the mortgage document that will give you to sign, the facility terms and conditions, etc. If you want to elect your own lawyer to do it for you, it's acceptable. It's acceptable, but I thought that looking at the cost of taking a lawyer, it will come at a cost, right? Then we just advise that, you can, rely on the bank to do this for you and do it well, right? Because most banks who are in mortgage have decent track record, years of experience, and would make sure that you are not shortchanged in any way. But if you take the decision to get your lawyer, go through the nitty-gritty, it's your choice. It's acceptable. You can do it if you want to. No problems at all.
Okay. Well, typically, what is the mortgage rate for somebody's asking for a fixed 5-year deposit? What is the rate for a mortgage in USD and in Ghana Cedi?
I think I alluded to it earlier on. The range on the market now is between 11 and 12.5. Okay. But like I said, it depends on your relationship, your credit history, and etc. So it depends more on the relationship. If you are a high-end customer with good track record with the bank, you definitely may get a better price than, a new borrower to the bank, so to say, so it depends. And at any point in time, it depends on the market trending rates, right? It depends on the rates in Ghana. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have chain mortgages? So my purchase will go through once I've sold my current property.
No, it doesn't. The market isn't that deep yet. I mean, it's you tend to have discrete transactions. So either you are buying a property or somebody's selling theirs. You don't often have a back-to-back where somebody's waiting for you to sell yours before they buy theirs. We're not there yet.
Okay. Somebody says, why can't you use your bank account abroad rather than opening a new bank account in Ghana for the mortgage?
Because it's a banking relationship. You're applying for a facility with us, right? So that there's a whole new banking relationship that needs to be established with us on an ongoing basis, out of which repayments will be taken, out of which if, for example, if we have to credit your account with some amount, we're not going to wire it to your bank in Chicago, wherever you are. So we leave it in the account you opened with us. So it's separate and apart from kind of the banking relationship you have wherever you are. For the same reason, if I took a mortgage in London, they presumably ask me to open some kind of account so that transactions are done on that too.
Absolutely. If someone would like to buy, okay. So E. Quason says, why do you need a person to verify your documents? Does the bank not have the facilities to check identify without the extra cost of engaging?
Okay, so if you are in Ghana, that one is not a problem because most banks are on platforms in the industry where we can easily verify by keying your ID number. We can easily verify the authenticity of your ID. But if you are in diaspora, right, then I require an expert, in that area who is certified to do that, to authenticate, the identities, whether the identity is correct, it's not fictitious, or it's not been tampered with in any way. So we normally require a solicitor or a notary public to do that, for you.
Okay. Granted, the mortgage rates are what they are. What is the government doing to bring this down?
This is the question that should be directed to Ken.
I
know. Right. So, I mean, listen, I think it's definitely one that the economic management team kind of are paid to think about. But as I said, the rates, you find the mortgage rates, you find tend to move in step with the rates at which governments borrow. And I think as we just joked about, I mean, the finance guys are on top of this one. It's an economic management question. But be that as it may, I mean, with time, I think as people get more comfortable with the product, as the institutions that lend towards the creation of mortgages, as those institutions grow more comfortable with the industry, and as the government's program, the one Godfred alluded to, as that also takes root, rates will naturally come downwards. I mean, that is a fair assumption to make.
And don't forget the market rate, the rates for the mortgage or borrowing, not generally on the banking industry, in the banking industry, it's dependent on the fiscal environment in which we operate, right? So as things, the macroeconomy becomes more stable, the rates will trend down, and of course it will reflect in the policy rates of the central bank, and then ultimately the bank's lending rates will also continue to trend, as we've been seeing over the last 4 years.
Yeah. Somebody says, Mike D says, is it possible to put 50 to 75% down on a property and get the rest on a mortgage for anyone since they are living in Canada?
Why not?
That definitely is the spirit. I mean, anybody who's put down 75% can probably do 100%. And I think I touched on this earlier when I said sometimes, even if you can pay outright, even if you can pay 100%, it's a good idea to do what Michael's suggesting: pay 75% and get the bank to fund the remaining 25. Because in funding the remaining 25, they will do all the due diligence checks, the searches, the consents, everything that needs to give you that assurance that you're on the right track as far as the property is concerned. We've had instances where people have come to us with properties which are completely built, and they want to do an equity release transaction on the back of on that property. You do a search, and you find out, as far as the government is concerned, that property is built on the site of a future motorway or some sports complex or something. I mean, if you had conducted due diligence before, or if you had come to us early on in the process, you would have found this out and probably not have built on that land. So it's useful just to get another pair of eyes, be it a financial institution or a lawyer, to do all the searches before you park the cash. And I think that's where sometimes the mistake is made, because you can pay for it 100%. You go ahead, release the funds, only to find out later that you've made a mistake. So that's a good move. Yeah.
Godfred?
No, I mean, for me, the more you deposit, as long as the property is well located, it's not encumbered in any way, no title breaches anyway, it's even better, because then your equity in the property is higher. You borrow less, so you don't end up being saddled with a higher debt to pay over a long time, as most people do fear, when it comes to mortgage. So the higher the equity, the better, I think so. Because
Okay.
you finish paying earlier, and your loan repayments ultimately will also come down if you decide to go for a longer tenor. So why not? It's better.
Okay. Kojo, you have a question on the screen.
Yes, and the question is from Romeo. He says, if I own a home outright, can I take a loan against it? If yes, what is the percentage I can borrow? So Romeo, this question is similar to one we answered earlier, which is, can you take an equity release mortgage? And the answer is yes. And you can go anywhere up to, say, 60% of the value of the property. The checks that will go through, I touched on earlier. One, you want to make sure that you are the rightful owner. It's not encumbered. You want to make sure that it's situated in the right place. There's no potential future conflicts or anything around the property. But otherwise, if you have that and there's verifiable income to back up your application, we're good to go. So you can make an inquiry and we'll help you.
Okay. Does the bank have estate developers they work with in case I want a 2-bedroom house, or do I have to look for the home myself?
We tend to, so thankfully, again, I think this is where the conversation started when you and I were talking, Denta, that now because of the internet and social media, I mean, finding a house is relatively easier, a lot easier than it used to be. So yes, you can look for one yourself, and there are lots of sites you can visit to help you do that. I always advise that in addition to doing this, talk to your friends, talk to people who've actually bought houses from the developers or vendors you're looking to buy from, because that's the ultimate test. I mean, they'll tell you what it feels like to live on the estate. So it's not just what the house looks like. It's the terms and conditions that are imposed on residents of the compound and how the developer interacts with the clients. All of that is information you need to know before you buy, not after. So the search begins online, but it should definitely end on the ground, speaking to people who live in some of these places you're looking to buy. But it's not that difficult anymore.
Godfred, anything to add to that?
So what we do is at any point in time, we do have vendors, partner vendors, who have typically gone into, let me say, arrangements where, we provide discounted interest rate for their clients, and they also provide discounts on their properties for our potential referrals that we do give them. So at any point in time, you would, recently, if you check our website, you would see that we would be pushing certain things we are doing with one of the leading developers in Ghana on a shell house concept, right? I know maybe I'm not allowed to mention names, but we are doing a campaign of a sort with them where they are doing a shell house concept. So they finish the house from the outside, it looks completed, right? But the inside, they left it to you to complete it to your lifestyle, right? In a prime location in Accra. If they finish the same property fully, you might be paying far higher. But because it's a shell house concept, you can't finish and build it at your own pace. Let's go over 12 months, 24 months, and moving, right? So some of these things are allowed, and we have a lot of them. If you come to our mortgage desk, we can always give you a list where you can quickly go and do site visits and for yourself and take a decision.
Okay. Chrissy, can we have that question back, please? Kojo, can you answer this question?
As real estate stakeholders, what can be done to reduce mortgage interest rates so that clients can get properties at affordable prices? Right. So, so there are two aspects to this. There's the cost of the property, and then there's the cost of the loan, and sometimes the two tend to be taken as one. I'm not sure that's the way to go. So first off, why are the houses so expensive? That's the common. I think that's what the question is alluding to. So what makes the house prices so expensive? That's a function of a lot of things. It's the cost of land, it's the cost of construction finance, it's the effort and resources required to acquire and secure land, especially in Accra. Whether you like it or not, somebody will come along after you paid for it to challenge your ownership. So for developers, they have huge costs they need to bear. As far as also, in addition to infrastructure costs, taking light, water to site. And they do all of this kind of unaided. So a lot of that gets passed on to the buyers, plus operating inefficiencies, I must add. But a lot of it gets passed on to the buyer. So you start off with a property which costs maybe a bit more than it actually should because of how it came into being. And then on the loan side, we've spoken about the interest rates and the macroeconomic conditions which drive them. So your question is, how do we combine these two issues and bring down both the cost of the house and the cost of the loan? It's through constant engagement. And I think, to be fair, a lot of work has been done by our friends at GREDA, of which we're a member, of course, and then government and stakeholders constantly talking around how do we reduce the cost of construction finance? How do we bring interest rates lower? And out of this, the government mortgage initiative was launched last year. It's still very much a pilot scheme, but a lot of potential there. And if it works, then we should see some very exciting local currency interest rates. But I mean, as I said, some of these things don't have easy solutions. It's a lot of work, and as long as we keep at it, we'll see a steady decline. But we've said several times this evening that once you decide what your target price is, once you establish what your income can allow you to acquire, if you look hard enough, you will find properties in that range. It is not the case that every property in Ghana or Accra is priced in 6-digit figures. That's not the case at all.
Okay. Somebody says, how can we form partnerships abroad to invest in properties in Ghana? So can several people in, for instance, the UK, come together and buy a property and get a mortgage in Ghana? Is that possible?
That sounds more like an investment club. Mortgages tend to have a kind of different risk profile to what I understood the question to mean. Definitely 10, 15 people or 5, 10 people can come together and buy a property and have it as a co-owned asset. Presumably that's for investment purposes. And once they pay,
We're losing you a bit.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Is it better now? Is it better?
Yes.
It's better. All right, cool. I'm just saying that it sounds more like an investment club than a potential mortgage application.
Investment. Yeah, investment. Can they do that?
No, so that's an investment club. So that's a different kind of concept.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we tend to think of more like direct ownership, where 1 or 2 people come together to buy properties and they're directly responsible. Preferably a property they want to live in, but occasionally we look at investments as well. But the questioner made it sound as if a group of people, so I kind of have a picture of maybe 5, 10 people coming together to buy properties and hold them as assets in a portfolio. That's a slightly different conversation from what we're having now.
Okay. Godfrey, can you see the question on the screen?
The Veterans Administration guarantee home loans. Will the bank be familiar with Veterans Admin guarantee
home loans from the US?
Currently not doing anything along that lines. I'm not familiar with it.
Okay. Kojo, are you familiar with that?
I'm not. I mean, if this Sandra, if she's asking whether we recognize income paid to veterans towards home acquisition, then yes, we have had applications such as that. Those who serve in the forces in the US sometimes get an allowance for a pension, which kicks in quite early and goes on for a very long time. And as a source of income towards repayment, that can be considered. I don't know if that's what the question is. That I'm aware of. I'm not aware of a vehicle that provides them with home loans in the US.
Okay. Can you see the question?
Yes, the question is, so should we open online banking, business or personal, if we are in the diaspora? And I think this is what I was alluding to, that you might want to have a conversation before you start the account opening process, because you want to know, it's important to know what you want to use the account for before you open it, just to make sure you open the right account.
Okay. Is that the same for you, Godfred?
Yeah, I think I alluded to that earlier, that for Fidelity, if you want to open, at least we have one self-employed account online that you can open. And we also do have a range of personal banking accounts. I mean, what's beautiful is that when you go to our online account opening link on our website, each product you select, it will tell you what the requirements are, what you can use it for, the fees and services, the digital enablements that comes with the account. So it's very easy for you to take a decision. If you are not sure, we have our contact center number that you can call for further engagement.
Okay. Eric, I can answer your question. No mortgages is offered for 1,400 Ghana cedi, right?
I think that's 14,000.
14,000. Okay, 14,000. You can get a mortgage, right?
Yes, you definitely get in touch. You have a mortgage waiting for him.
So Eric, I'll put the website back up, and also Godfred and Kojo, if you on my private chat, can you send your email addresses? Maybe people want to get in, in touch with you direct to ask these questions. If you just type it into the private chat, that would be great. But for Eric, who just asked the question, Kojo says there is a mortgage waiting for you right now.
Yes,
this
in the fridge.
So make sure that you get online and you apply. Okay, Godfred, can you answer this question, please?
I think we've lost Godfred.
Oh, can you answer it then, Kojo?
Yeah, so what's the steps of acquiring a land in Accra? That is, if you see a land that you're interested in, who is the first person to contact? Is there any agencies to identify land owners? Right, so this is the crux of the matter. So who do you see when you spot a land and you want to buy it? Well, presumably, first, there's someone who is purporting to be the owner. There must be a phone number or some agent who claims to know the owner. And that's where this conversation starts from. So you might want to first at least get who is holding themselves out to be the owner. And they should give you some documentation or some evidence that they do indeed own the land. At that stage, unless you absolutely know what you're doing, I would encourage you to find a lawyer who is familiar in land matters, or you can come in and apply for a land purchase mortgage, and as part of the process, that whole due diligence will be taken care of, and we'll ask all the difficult questions and come back with the answers. But if you don't have a lawyer and you don't want to take a mortgage, then you could be in a rather tricky situation, because there are a lot of people pretending to be selling land that doesn't belong to them.
Okay. Is First National Bank, is it originally Ghanaian owned? And somebody says, I think Fidelity is Nigerian. No, Fidelity is also Ghanaian owned, right?
Wholly owned Ghanaian private bank.
Fantastic.
Owned by
fantastic.
two illustrious Ghanaian bankers. Yeah.
Right. The First National is part of the First Rank Group. It's South African.
Okay, it's South African. Okay. Someone says, John says, the last time I was in Ghana, I wanted a mortgage for a house, but I was told that mortgages are not given to chefs. Is this true?
No, it's not. I don't know. Sometimes the way a question is put determines the answer you get, but it's not the case that as long as you've got income, as long as it's verifiable, it's regular, you will qualify. Maybe he didn't qualify for the amount he was looking for, but it's not the case that mortgages, and there's nothing wrong with chefs. I mean, we've given money to almost every other profession. So it's not the case that mortgages aren't given to chefs. It might be something else to do with his application.
Okay. Godfred, on the screen for you.
No, certainly not. I mean, if you have a chef who is working in a 5-star hotel, you cannot say you will not give the person a mortgage as long as the person's income can afford and the job he is in is a full-time, consistent job. Why not?
Okay. Yeah. Godfred, you have a question on the screen.
Why can't the banks be transparent from the onset? So many hidden charges, but will put you off and you will only get it known. You only get to know them after you start the processing. No, see, so for us, right from the beginning, we'll get you to know all the charges that you need to pay. So let me typically tell you, if you need to take a mortgage, typically the bank will charge a facility fee. It varies depending on the bank. It will be made known to you on your facility letter. Because the title would have, the bank has to do a search on the title. Typically, the bank will tell you how much it will cost you by way of the legal search. Then, having done everything, you may be required to do insurance on mortgage life and then also on allied perils. And all this will be made known to you. Insurance brokers will give you a sense once they know the loan amount and the value of the property. They can always make sure that you know all the charges. Nothing will be hidden.
Kojo, there's no hidden charges with your bank, right?
No hidden charges. We try to put it all out there, even though sometimes that also discourages people. But no, I mean, we try to set it out. Sometimes the unknown, the big unknown is the cost of title transfer. Right from the get-go, we can give you a very good estimate as to how much it will cost. But sometimes once you get in, and just to explain for the benefit of your audience who might not be familiar, when you buy a property, title must be transferred from the previous owner's name into your name. Now, it's a bit of an art trying to figure out what's going to happen as that process evolves. And we don't control the process. We go to Lands Commission, Survey Department, Land Title to get this business done. So given the experience we have at it, we can give you a very good estimate how much we think is going to cost. And usually we are kind of in the ballpark. Occasionally, something else pops up from the Lands Commission or land agency's end, which varies that number a bit. So it will appear as if we are asking you to bring more than we told you have to in the beginning. Otherwise, it really goes according to the script. And whatever you pay as down payment at the beginning is what is used to do that. So no hidden charges. It's quite straightforward. And as long as monthly payments are made. In fact, actually, there are several non-resident applicants who we've never ever met. In other words, they applied online, we funded the property, they've made all the payments and actually paid off, and we never met them, not once. They never stepped in. They paid off. It's possible because really, once you're making the payments, we know where you are, we know where the property is. There's no real reason to visit, and therefore there's nothing to charge you for. I mean, so it's quite a smooth affair, 90-something% of the time.
Okay, Max says, can I monitor mortgage transactions online in the course of my repayment?
Yeah, I mean, your mortgage repayment essentially will go to your transactional account, and typically it will hit you and show what is principal and what is interest. So it's very easy for you to monitor on your transactional account. From time to time, you can also put in a request through our mobile app, or you can go on online banking and request for your mortgage, download your mortgage statement and to be emailed to your address. Or you can always, if push comes to shove and you are struggling, you can always go through the customer service center and it can be downloaded and sent to you. But you can always do it through the app and the online banking platform.
Okay, yeah. Fantastic. Chrissy, yep. So question to Kojo and Godfred. Does the bank provide the mortgage advice or is there an independent mortgage advisors who would search the whole market for the best product to meet the customer's needs?
Well, at the moment, the banks provide advice. The market isn't quite there yet where you go to an independent house and they can provide the mortgage advice the question is alluding to. I mean, I know there are some institutions who will tell you they do that, but the reality is ultimately you come back to the bank to conduct the business. So we're not quite advanced as certain markets are where there's the independent broker system.
Somebody's asked, are there penalties for early payoff?
It depends on your deal. At least normally for most banks, there's a duration within which if you early settle, there would be an early settlement fee, right? But it depends from bank to bank. Some banks will not take it. Some banks will take it depending on how long you've paid for the facility. And all these things typically will be made available in your facility letter. So it's not anything that will be hidden from you. So right from the beginning, you can make a choice, And like Kojo said, there's always the option of you making lump bulk payments in between the payment schedule if you want to finish early, right? So as much as possible, banks may be a little bit accommodating, if it's not done too and often, right? And it can be done. But whatever it will be by way of fee, it will be made known in your facility letter. It will not be hidden from you.
Okay. Before I go to Alex's question, Amanda says, how long is the whole process of getting a mortgage, meaning from start of the application to when the funds are received? How long is the process?
Well, that's that another it depends question. It depends because it depends whether you're salaried or self-employed. It depends on the property you are buying and how easy it is to verify the details. It depends on matters arising. Once you drop the application, it goes through a processing stage and questions might arise. And if you're unable to provide the answers, then it kind of drags it out a bit. Otherwise, usually within 2 to 3 weeks, you should have a very clear indication on how at least your credit, the answer to the question, how much are you good for? You should get that answer. The process of getting the searches in on the property, the survey results, the legal opinions on the property, that can take a bit longer depending on how the situation at the relevant government agency is at the time. So it's really hard to give a definite answer because
typically, if you're you've got employment, like that guy that's got the 1,400, money ready for a mortgage, how long is the process for somebody like that?
Yeah, but that's one dimension of the problem. So he's got his 14,000 and he's buying a property which is 500,000 cedis. Now, if that property is built by a developer and we've checked out the developer once before, we know that their land title or that whatever title they have is in good shape, no issues there, then he can get an answer literally within inside of 4 weeks. By the time we've run his credit, checked everything out, no problem there. The same applicant, same 14,000, if he decides to buy a property that was owned by someone who willed it to his children, who haven't done the vesting assent, who are now trying to get together to figure out who's going to sign, we could be in there for a very long time because anybody can throw an interpleader and solve the process. So you get a picture. It really depends on the aspects of the transaction. But generally, as far as the credit bit, that's slightly easier. Within 2-3 weeks, we have a view. The only caveat to that is the self-employed, where we need to get a better understanding of their income. So it comes down to a case-by-case basis. But we try to do it as quickly as possible to ensure the person gets the property they're looking to buy. That's why it's important to start the process as early as possible and not drag it along till your vendor has a gun to your head. Because then you're under pressure, you really want to buy the house, he's telling you someone else wants it, and you might decide to forget the mortgage process and write a check. And that's where your problems might begin. So it's important that you start the process as early as possible so we can get a nice, good lead time to give you an answer.
Okay, fantastic. Guys, we're going to have just 15 more minutes with Godfred and Kojo. They've been with us. It's going to be 2 hours soon. I know that there's loads of questions. We're going to run through them as quickly as possible. Make sure that if you are watching, that you are sharing your pages, because there's somebody somewhere that could have, you know, this information may be very valuable to them. So make sure that you share your pages if you are watching us on YouTube, and if you're watching us on Facebook as well, make sure that you share your pages, make sure that you subscribe as well. And I also want to say a big thank you to World Remit for sponsoring this program. It's very fast and very easy to use World Remit. Make sure that you download the app and get using straight away. Godfred, can you take the next question, which is on the screen?
Okay. Is the mortgage amount calculated on one's net income or disposable income? That's after rent. Okay, so in our part of the world, you know, because it's digitally difficult to track people's expenditures, unlike on the other side of the Atlantic, where things are easy for you guys to trend or to track all these things. So what we do here is typically on your net income to the bank. You know, we may look at, for example, heavy and consistent debits to the account, which we can easily make sense of and get a clear sense of what is really available to service your facility. So that's what we do by way of the evaluation process, purely based on the net income and any chunky, consistent debits on your salary account or your transaction account.
Okay. Kojo, can you take this question?
Right, so this is from Angela, and the question is, can a retiree purchase with 50% down and mortgage the other 50%? So essentially the question is, if you are retired, can you take a mortgage? So the answer is another, it depends. It depends because the question is, if you are retired, how are you going to service the 50%? Now, you know, it depends on your retirement income. We've seen some retirement incomes which are multiples of people's salaries, and that therefore means, and it's guaranteed retirement. So we can take a credit view on that. And some too are on regular retirement pension, which doesn't allow them to qualify. So it's really a case-by-case basis. It tends to go to a committee and a view is taken. It's the challenge you find is not so much the eligibility, assuming the individual has a good retirement income to service the loan. The challenge tends to come in when we ask for an insurance policy, if they don't already have one. And that's a non-negotiable mandatory requirement. You must have a life insurance policy when you take the mortgage. So to the extent that the individual can tick those two boxes, we can consider the application. But generally, affordability or the quality of the pension income is one, and getting insurance to conclude the transaction is another hurdle which stops these kind of applications.
Is that the same for you, Godfred?
Same. I mean, same. I don't have that much to add. Same. Yeah.
Okay. Chrissy, can you add the next question? If not, you know, for Africans living in the diaspora, what would you advise them to get a loan abroad or in Ghana?
Right. Well, I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that if you qualify to raise £200,000 in the UK using your house as collateral, you get it at a much lower rate than we could possibly ever give you. So that's a fact, right? The question is, can you get £200,000 on your house in the UK to bring to Ghana? If you can, and some people have, then from the financial point of view, it makes a lot of sense. There are other reasons why you might not want to do so, and I can think of a few. I mean, there are people who want to keep their wealth apart. You know, they want their UK business to be in UK and their Ghana business to be in Ghana, so they don't want kind of to have the kind of funds that move out of the UK into Ghana and vice versa for personal reasons, and we respect that. So if you're looking at it from the pure interest rate point of view, and I suspect that's what the questioner is alluding to, then you get a better rate in the US or the UK. Now, I saw someone put up that Fed funds are, I think, under 1% or something. So the rates are much lower there. We know that. And if you can release equity from your house then and move it across, it makes a lot more financial sense. We know that too. But I said, I've given one reason why you might want to keep your worlds apart. And secondly, I always think about it in terms of partnership. It's not just a loan you're taking from your mortgage provider here. You're getting a transaction partner, somebody who's going to check out the house, make sure it's where it should be, make sure that the title documentation and everything around the house is on point. And so you can move in peaceably. Otherwise, you can buy the house because you managed to raise the funds, only to find out you're not getting your lease documents or there's some consent issue which you were not aware of, and you get into all kinds of other situations. So I would encourage people to think past the money and look at the partnership aspect of the transaction. Who's your financial partner in Ghana when you move your funds over?
Okay. Godfrey, can you take the next question?
Knowing how difficult it takes for one to get a land title, can one get an equity release on a property in Accra without land title? Kushman, unfortunately, no. For you to take any form of a mortgage against any property, don't forget the property is going to be the security or the collateral against which the bank is granting you the funds you require. So if there is no title to that property, then it becomes difficult for the bank to hold on to and grant you the facility. So I'm sorry to say, in this circumstance, we cannot grant you an equity release on such a property. The property must have proper registered title.
Okay. Kojo, can you take this question?
So this one is from Joey, and the question is, what are the general annual appreciation rates on property prices in Accra, considering interest rates are 15%? So he's asking whether it makes sense. I mean, how much are you going to get on annual property appreciation if you're paying 15% for the loan? And the answer is, again, it depends, because it's not a homogeneous market. There's a high end of the market, there's a low end of the market, and there's a bit in between. So at the high end, if you know a bit about Accra, Roman Ridge, Cantonments, Airport, you might not get too much by way of capital appreciation, but you get good rental income. You did until February this year. And then you go further out where you might not get rental income, which is exciting, but you get a decent 5, 10, 15% if you're lucky on capital appreciation. So it really depends where you're buying the property, the price at which you acquired it, improvements you made to the property. But I think the good old golden rule always applies, which is location, location, location. We've seen all kinds of things happen with property prices over the past 10, 15 years. But the key rule is the properties that have been situated in the right areas always hold their value. So you might not get some really sky high capital appreciation, but at least you preserve your capital. In some cases, if you don't choose your right location, you could end up losing money. So location, location, location is the way to go.
Okay. How many years do you have on your mortgage?
From Fidelity Bank, we will normally give you up to 20 years. So, and don't forget, whatever tenure we give you is tied to your retirement age. So if you are in Ghana, by your 60th birthday, the facility should have been fully paid off, right? If you are a diasporan, depending on whether you are in US or UK, I'm told UK, have you moved to 67 or you are 65?
65.
Okay, so by your 65th birthday, the facility should have been retired.
70. They want us to just increase.
But let me quickly add that in Ghana, for example, there are certain professions like the judicial service, lecturers in the tertiary institutions, and doctors who normally work beyond 60. So if your employer provide evidence that you are working beyond 65, beyond 60, then we'll allow your facility tenure to go up to what your employer has certified as your official retirement age.
Okay. I think we're going to wrap up. I know that there are people still coming in with questions, but what I think I didn't ask is, say I've come in to get a mortgage. What is the process, Godfred? What do I need to have?
Okay. So first of all, you must come with their sale offer from the vendor who is selling you the property. Mm-hmm. 2, a copy of the vendor's title to the property. You must also bring it along. 3, you must evidence your income source. So if you are salaried, your pay slip, your last 3 months pay slip must come along. If you are self-employed, we need to see your bank statement over the last 12 months. You should complete the requisite mortgage application form, add any of our national IDs, be it passport, your Ghana card, or the voter's ID card, or the driver's license. You can add it to the application. If you are doing home completion, then you will be required to add bill of quantities. That's an estimate from a quantity surveyor that gives a sense of the total cost the total estimates that will lead to the completion of your house. And last but not least, you would also be required to add a credit referencing bureau report. Normally, the banks here in Ghana, the banks will pull the credit referencing bureau report for you just to show your level of credibility. And if you're a salaried worker, most importantly, your employer must add a letter of introduction, or what we popularly call letter of undertaking. Yeah.
Is that the same for you, Kojo?
Yeah, it's pretty much pretty much the same. I think it's once the application has been received and the processing commences, that's when supplementary requests might go out just to seek clarification. So you might find somebody has a name on their birth certificate or passport which is different from the name on their application, either because they got married or decided to change their name. And we need to understand what's going on, or maybe the vendor has one name on the offer letter and another name on the title document. So out of that, other questions come up, but the list Godfred gave is quite exhaustive. Yeah.
We're losing Kojo.
Oh, sorry. The internet is tired. Am I back on?
Yes, you're back on. But Kojo, you haven't entered your email address for us on the private chat. I don't know whether you can see the private chat.
I can see my guys in there answering questions. I'll do that. I'll put my address there.
Okay. Godfred, can you answer the question?
I'm 60 and already retired with verifiable income of 19,000 cedis. How long would my mortgage be? That's just like I said, we normally target your mortgage expiry date to your retirement age. So in this special case of being a retiree but with a significant monthly income, normally, I mean, there've been some exceptions I'm aware of. We normally don't go beyond 70 years, but that's on exception based on what you are doing now. If you are still, some people go on retirement and they are still active, so they are in consultancy work or they are still working on a special arrangement, maybe overseeing somebody's educational institution, or maybe running a hospital as an administrator stuff. I've done something like that before. In that case, based on the contract you have, we guess how active you can work for the rest of your life, and something can be crafted. But it's seriously exception. Not done narrowly.
Okay. Godfred, does Fidelity Bank have any relation to Fidelity Investments?
Okay, so the Fidelity Bank has three main groups. So we have the main Fidelity Bank, the Universal Bank. Then we also have the Fidelity Securities, that what we call FSL. Then we also have the Fidelity Asia Bank, which is our offshore wing. So it is the Fidelity Securities is part of the Fidelity Group.
So we're going to wrap up. I've had 2 amazing hours with Kojo and Godfred. I think that I just want to apologize for Stanbic. He was having technical difficulties, so was unable to come on the show, but hopefully I will get him on another time. But, you know, Godfred, what would your advice be to, you know, a young person, the youth who is trying to buy that home? What would your advice be to them?
Just as I started, when you are young, I would advise that you start from the bottom of the property ladder, but just make sure that if you intend to expand in due course, then get a property that has adequate land around it, such that as your income grows, you can expand.
Godfred, we're losing you a bit. Godfred, we're losing you a bit.
Hello, is that okay?
Hello. Try again.
Hello, Denta. I can hear you clearly from here. Is that okay?
A little better, yeah.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that I'll always advise that you start from the bottom of the property ladder as much as possible, because then it grants you affordability. You are able to cut your coat according to your size. You don't get stretched by way of servicing the loan. You have other residual income to take care of your life and your family, etc. But as you grow and your income goes up, you can then take a decision to either sell and move into a bigger property, or you extend or expand the property you are currently in so to fit your family and your aspirations. It's always better that way.
Okay.
Alternatively, you can also buy a plot in a well-located serviced area, you know, which is not too outlandish, and you can build on your own up to a stage where you can take a completion mortgage. Yeah.
Okay. Kojo, can you take this question before you wrap up with your last few words?
So the question is, so are people 50 years old and above discouraged from purchasing homes in anticipation of retirement? No, I don't think that's what has been said at all. I think all that's being said is that if you were to take a mortgage now to buy a property, could you finish paying for it in time for you to retire? Because once you retire and your income drops considerably, you still have to service this mortgage, and that puts us all in a bit of a tight situation. So I think that's the issue. And so we've had people who've taken loans in their 50s and paid off well before retirement. So it's doable. The question is, do you have an income base to support a shorter mortgage period? Normally you'd have 15, 20 years to pay off. In this case, you'll be given maybe 10 years. And the question is, do you still qualify? And if you do, why not? So nothing stops you from taking a loan if you're above 50. It's just that your repayment period is a bit shorter.
Okay, Godfred, can you answer this question?
Yeah, quickly. I mean, like I said, it's the same group. Funds do move in between depending on what appetite the customer has. So if you decide that maybe the current investment, you are not happy with the appetite there and you want to move it to the Fidelity Bank, why not? You can always move funds in between the various investment instruments in the group.
Okay. Fantastic. Kojo, so your last words for people especially in the diaspora who are looking to invest in Ghana, what would your advice be to them?
Well, I think first off, the fact that they are listening to a program like this is an extremely good first step. Research. really do some research, ask around, talk to people who've done it before, call your friends, check out the terrain. Because once you've done your research, then you can make an informed decision. Don't jump in head first. And then get some advice so that you don't buy something either you don't need or you can't afford. I mean, we've had a lot of transactions with diaspora accounts going into delinquency because you find maybe the person has bought the property, but they really don't have any intentions of coming to Ghana anytime soon. And the family members they wanted to live in the property probably don't want to live in the property, or they can't get the rental income. So there are all kinds of reasons which make what sounded like a very good idea go wrong very quickly. So get some advice, do the research, get some advice, and buy something that you can well afford as the first step. The most important thing is to have a base when you come home. Once you're here, you can build that dream home. The risk is trying to build the dream home from wherever you are without the necessary support system here. And I think that's where people tend to get into trouble. So start small if you have to, get that first base, and out of that secure base, then you can make some more progress. But at whatever you do, don't give up because it's doable, and many people have done it before you. So don't give up, have a plan and stick to it.
Absolutely. And what is your, you're somebody that's moved from the diaspora, and there's a lot of people that are still hovering 50-50. What would your advice be to them as well, Kojo?
Well, it's a bit of a personal decision. I mean, what worked for me probably wouldn't work for them. But if your plan is to return to Ghana, then live and plan accordingly. It sounds like a statement of the obvious, but you find people who are looking to return to Ghana, but they live as if they're going to stay in the UK forever. And you find people who intend staying in the UK, but they live as if they are returning to Ghana. I think once you have a plan that you're coming to Ghana, then the focus should probably be on getting a house here, not so much getting a house there. The focus should be buying assets here because this is a destination. But as I said, it's a very personal journey, and everybody's journey obviously will be different. But the plan should be consistent with the objective. And whenever, I sometimes see people who get the two mixed up. But if the plan is to come to Ghana, then all the resources, all efforts, if you're looking at schools for the kids, everything should be Ghana-based because this is where you set out to return to, and it will happen.
Thank you so much. I mean, straight after this show, Kojo, I'm going to open up a First National bank account. I'm already a customer of Fidelity Bank for many years. They're online, the personal banker, Ken, and, the team are wonderful. You can call them literally anytime. You won't get that service in the UK where you can call your personal banker around 6-7 o'clock and they will still be, very receptive and want to do a lot of things for you. And so I would encourage all of you to open both of the accounts. Okay, there's nothing that stops us from opening 2 accounts with them and seeing which one works best for you. Just as in the UK or the USA, you have, HSBC, Barclays, and NatWest. You can open these accounts and make sure that you go online. Their details are there. Any questions, you can, have it answered. But I hope that, Godfred, you've enjoyed the show, and Kojo, and that, next time when we ask you again to come on board, that you wouldn't hesitate to come back on the show.
Absolutely. It's been a wonderful time, and coming up on the sidebar, very informative, and I think it's a wonderful show, and I hope everybody has enjoyed it the same as I have.
Thank you.
Definitely. I mean, looking at the feedback from the people, I'm sure it's been quite experiential for them, and we look forward to hear from them. I've provided my email address there. If you have anything you want by way of an account or an investment or mortgage, please do not hesitate at all. Just drop me a line. We'll get back to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time that you've spent with me this evening, and I will see you sometime soon to maybe have a part 2 of this conversation. But thank you once again. So I'm going to take you offline now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, I hope that you have enjoyed tonight's show. It's been very informative. As you know, on the Dentist Show, we make sure that we give you the right information with the right experts so that you make the right decision. You know, again, I want to say a big thank you to World Remit for sponsoring the show. They are sponsoring the Dentist Show live show now for the next few months, and it's exciting for them to be on board. I also want to say that, look, guys, if you are interested in investing back home in Ghana, then make sure that you subscribe to Odana Network. I've just put the details on the screen now, on the comments. Make sure that you go online and you subscribe to it. I think that it's a platform where if you want to connect with people, businesses, if you want to buy property, this is the time that you can go online and do that. And again, if you haven't already got your earphones from Seek, make sure that you go online, right, and purchase Seek headphones. When I tell you, the music just vibrates into your soul, and it's made by Ghanaians, made by a Black person. You know, now Black Lives Matters is all about Black businesses. Let's support, guys. And when you go on there, all you need to do, right, is go online, www.seekvr.com. Use the promo code DENTAVIP. Yes, we're all VIPs, and you get 10% discount on all of their products across board. So make sure that you go on there and do that. So this is Odana Connect. You can go online, please subscribe. This is the time that, you know, if you really want to invest in Ghana and Africa, you can do that. If you're looking to agriculture, if you're looking for job opportunities, if you're looking for partnership, this is the time. Go online and subscribe now. Make sure if you're watching me on YouTube, make sure that you've hit the subscribe button. It's so, so important that you hit that subscribe button and that follow button on Facebook. I thank all my viewers. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for staying with me all of this while and watching the show. And make sure, like I said, that you go to Vesta London Beauty for the lip gloss. Can you imagine? It stayed on for the last 2 hours, and it can stay on for the next 6 hours, I'm sure. Make sure that you get Cassie's Classics. She has shito. She has spices for your jollof rice. She has, oh man, a whole heap of different products that you can go online. So make sure that you do that. This is her website details for these amazing, I've been using it for all my Ghanaian dishes that I do. And also Vesta London Beauty, that's her details there. So thank you, guys. I hope that you've enjoyed the show. And if there's ever any topics that you want us to talk about, you want us to, discuss, please, please, please do email me on dentashow@gmail.com. If there's any person that you think that, Denta should interview, please email me at dentashow@gmail.com. Stay safe, stay blessed. And I guess I will see you same time next week sometime. But yeah, thank you so much and God bless. Bye-bye.